Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar series, Extraordinary Minds in Extraordinary Times, courtesy of Edith Cowan University. This has been created for you, the ECU students, as well as recent graduates, and it offers unprecedented access to some of Australia's leading CEOs and their directors of talent. Tim McMillan is my name, and it is my absolute pleasure to be your host this afternoon. Firstly, I respectfully acknowledge the past, present and emerging traditional custodians of this land on which we are meeting, the Noongar elders and people. And I'd like to welcome all of our students who've registered and are tuning in today. Good afternoon to you, particularly our recent and graduating engineering students. I believe we also have some students from right across a number of different schools at ECU, including business and law and the School of Science. So welcome one and welcome all. As I mentioned, this webinar series has been specifically designed for you by the ECU alumni team, and it is very much with you in mind. It'll feature leaders from right across industry, and we're able to bring to you the very latest advice that will hopefully get you going into your postgraduate life and into the workforce. So I hope you can join us this afternoon and across our future series as well. If you are a recent ECU graduate, we'd like to officially welcome you to the ECU alumni community. It just so happens that I'm also an ECU alum, so hopefully you'll consider yourself a valued member of our exclusive club. With that in mind, being part of the ECU alumni community means that you are able to avail yourself of incredible professional development opportunities, career advice, mentoring and all sorts of other benefits. So just visit the website that's on the screen and please make sure that all your details are up to date so that we can stay in touch with you and let you know what's coming up. ECU is proud to be launching this inaugural Extraordinary Minds in Extraordinary Times series with global natural resources company South32. In the spotlight today, we have Graham Kerr, the CEO of South32 and South32 Group Manager of Culture and Capability, Lincoln Cox. South32, as you may well be aware, a globally diversified mining and metals company that operates here in Australia, but also through Southern Africa and South America. They have 10 operations globally and joint ventures in Brazil and Colombia, and all up employ nearly 15,000 people. Today, Graham and Lincoln will both be sharing their incredible insights into their industry and also the changes and the challenges, the opportunities, and most importantly, how you can best navigate and position yourself in the new job market. So when you registered, you were able to log a question. If you do have any questions, please send them through, and time permitting, I'll be able to take your questions to our two guest speakers. And if a question just pops into your mind, you can enter that in at any time during our discussion. So let me now introduce you to Graham Kerr. Graham has been the CEO of South32 for nearly 6 years. He's responsible for running all parts of the business and has led the charge with establishing South32 and publicly listing the company in 3 countries. Graham holds a business degree from Edith Cowan. So he's also an ECU alum, and we are delighted to have him here with us today. Good afternoon, Graham. Great to see you, and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Tim, and thanks for the opportunity to sort of have a chat to the students today. Looking forward to it. Yeah,
look, Graham, we're stating the obvious here, I suppose. First up, the world is very different to the one that we imagined 6 months ago. Fair to say that the graduating cohort in 2020 is entering a job market that is really different to the one that probably you and I graduated into many years ago, a few years ago. Can you just tell us what are the key things that are different now to say this time last year?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Tim. And I'd say you used the word many words. That's probably many years ago in terms of when I graduated in particular. And it's funny, the photo you're showing there, my wife actually found the other night, and it's the first car I got when I got the job with BHP as a graduate, and it's the car I used to drive up to Port Hedland to my first job. So it actually brings back memories. And I guess from when I was a graduate to where we are today, it is a very different world because the world is far more global than what it used to be. But I think at the same time, if you think about where we are today with COVID-19, it's a world where that global economy is being really challenged in the next 6 months. And the key word we're using within our group when we talk to our employees, all our stakeholders, is, what we're seeing at the moment is probably an unprecedented level of uncertainty. And I think as a graduate coming out of university, that's got people's minds as they think about the career choices they need to make in the short and the medium and the long term.
Well, what do you see as the immediate future then, Graham? What should the graduates be looking for in the next, say, 6 to 12 months? How have the dynamics changed?
Look, I think the dynamics have changed in terms of, if you look at the Western world, the Western world has gone to a position where it's had the luxury of having strong health systems and strong, if you like, infrastructure and economies to basically support people during COVID-19. Many parts of the developing world haven't had those same strengths, so COVID-19 is much more challenging in those situations. But if you take somewhere like it's largely been immune, obviously we've all seen the economic impacts of COVID-19, what it's done to jobs, and in particular, it's had a large impact on youth employment, which I think is always concerning. If I was coming out of university today, I would be very targeted about the industries I want to sort of put my hand up for and have a think about, where those industries sit in the short to medium term. And I guess that's why there's a bit of noise, if you like, around minerals, if you like, and commodity prices today. I do believe that the mining space, if you are a graduate, is a great place to be because it will still provide opportunities in terms of the global context. And it is an industry that I think the world will even need more of in terms of the commodity it produces in the medium to long term. And in the short term, it's still a great place to be.
So where specifically do you see the opportunities emerging here in WA and then more broadly, perhaps the rest of the country and globally?
Yeah, well, if you think just in WA and we start Western Australia, we don't produce iron ore today. We produce alumina, aluminium, we produce nickel, met coal, energy coal, lead, silver and zinc. We run 10 operations around the globe at the moment, and we're building two large projects, one in particular in Arizona and another one we're looking at in Queensland. So I think there's still a strong demand for our products globally, and we continue the business in other parts of the world. But I think in Western Australia, if you think about our alumina refinery and bauxite mine in the southwest around Bunbury, we're always looking for new talent to come into that organisation as we do graduate recruitment as well as apprenticeship recruitment. And if you think about Western Australia generally, the one commodity that's really held out well during COVID-19 has been iron ore, but also gold because of the volatility. I think Western Australia is pretty blessed to have an abundance of both of those commodities. And not only do they have those commodities, they're in a really good position on the cost curve, which means, while the prices are strong today, even when become sort of lower than what they are today, those commodities will continue to be attractive.
Graham, can you just tell us a little bit about your story? I think we've all seen the photo of you standing proudly in the driveway with your first car there. It's a shame we didn't get to see the full mullet in its spectacular glory there. We might chase you up for another photo there. But how did you first get your foot in the door and start your way on what's been a pretty incredible career path for you?
So look, I think like a lot of people, I was lucky enough during my second to third year transition at university to get vacation employment and get some exposure, if you like, to the real workplace to back up some of the theory you learn at university. I was lucky enough to be recruited into BHP before I graduated as a graduate. And they had a really good graduate program which sort of set me up, if you like, for the future. So my first job was basically in Perth around orientation. Then I moved to Port Hedland to work in the Pilbara, then down to Newman. Then I went to Melbourne. Then I actually went to Townsville. This is all in the space of about 4 years. And then in my fifth year, and this is the photo you can see on the screen now, was one of 3 visits I had to the Northwest Territories of Canada. And got to experience a different way of living. To give you a sense of that picture, I think it was in minus 46 degrees.
Wow.
That I was putting a hand down the ice and doing the cricket bat test. I guess I was lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time and get a lot of opportunities to sort of progress my career. I've worked all through Australia, Southern Africa, United Kingdom, South America and North America. And I think, one thing mining does is really provide you with that global context and global experience. So I think been really lucky in that space, but I think what I really came out of from ECU was actually a really strong, if you like, drive towards the basics, the fundamentals and practical work experience, which I think allowed me to sort of transition into the workplace much easier.
In terms of your career, careers do ebb and flow. Can you talk us through some of the high points and perhaps the low points, the challenging times that you've experienced along the way?
Yeah, so maybe give you in a slightly different context. I mean, I've often been asked, you know, I've had a good run in my career. I don't think it's actually finished, but there are probably three things that I talk to people about which I think allowed me to get to where I am today. One is being in the right place at the right time, as funny as that sounds, and I'll come back to that in a second. The second piece would be around actually, you know, working hard. You still got to work hard no matter what you do. And the third piece, I've been lucky enough to have my wife, who's been with me since the journey, who's been hugely supportive. You know, we worked out that we've had 17 different moves in about 6 different countries. So that's a lot of, if you like, pick up and go. But if I go back to that first comment about being in the right place at the right time, there's always an element of luck, but it's also what you do with your luck. So that picture, for example, of Yellowknife that you saw on the previous screen, that was probably my big career break as a 26-year-old when the, you know, BHP had a series of diamond mines in the Northwest Territories of Canada. Look up Yellowknife on the atlas, you'll see it's pretty much up near the Arctic Circle, on the mines just within the Arctic Circle. You have 9 months of the year of snow, 3 months of the year of darkness and minus 45 degrees. There was not many Australians that were willing to actually go there. I put my hand up to go there for 3 years. And as a 26-year-old, I ended up looking after about 1,500 people, managing a winter road, a supply function, a maintenance function, and really got to see the complete cycle, if you like, of what it's like in the mining space. So that was probably the highlight in terms of opportunity. The flip side is further down in my career, further on in my career when I moved to a new job, I probably would have been about 34, 35, and first day on the job, we were running an exploration program in Angola, and the helicopter that some of the people were in actually crashed, and we lost 5 of our team members in that crash. And I guess that really drove home to me the reminder that, you know, actually working in the mining space, how you approach safety, how you make sure your people go home safe and well into the shift. Well, there's nothing more important than that. So they're probably the two extreme ends, if you like, of my career, the opportunity, but also the biggest challenge.
And for those who are about to graduate or have recently graduated, if you were to talk to them about the sort of attitude they should be adopting when looking to get into the market, having an open mind and saying yes to those opportunities that have taken you to some pretty far and wide and at times inhospitable parts of the earth, is it really important that you are open to those experiences?
Look, I think absolutely. I mean, I think it's very easy to take your first job and then stay within your comfort zone. You know, while you're young enough, my advice is always to experience as many different cultures, as many different experiences as you can. And I think that gives you the breadth. So later on in life, you can move from more of a technical specialist to a manager of people. And that sort of takes experience in a whole lot of different environments. And for you to sort of be more broad than just a subject matter expert. So my advice to people is always seize as many opportunities as you can to actually get that exposure.
As an ECU alum, Graham, what would you say are some of the outstanding attributes that you see in ECU graduates?
Look, I think I made a comment earlier, which certainly I felt set myself up really well for my career, was the emphasis that ECU had on practicality and actually experience and learning things, and then how you can actually take that into your first job. Because it's very easy, and Lincoln can make some comments later, that it's very easy to see people come through with great academic results coming out of university, and because the world's much more global now, we will get applications from all over the world, but it's getting that combination of good marks but also good practical experience that you can deal with people that I think sets people apart. And I think ECU's always been very conscious about getting that balance right.
And have you got any key tips for young engineers right now about, you know, what's going to be important for them in the job market in the near future?
Look, I think if you're interested in the mining space, I think there's a huge opportunity because the uptake in the mining and some of the engineering related fields in mining has been very last couple of years. And I think the industry is really getting close to that point where you're going to see a real big growth in demand for engineers. So in that position, I think it'd be all about getting ready for that. And you've got the technical skills. Again, it's about getting that base understanding and that ability to actually communicate to people and have conversations and, you know, sort of influence people. You know, that's the way I think you position yourself for the future.
One more question from me, Graham, before I go to Lincoln. When you're hiring, Graham, what would be the one most important question that you ask a prospective employee?
So whether it's hiring or having a look at the people you have working for you, and I'm not particularly a fan of Jack Walsh. I don't take this as a, if you like, sort of believing in his approach to business. But I did like one thing that he used to talk about in GE, and his discussion in GE was around what he called the 4 E's. And those 4 E's were essentially, one was around energy. You can actually see the people who bring energy to a team. They actually energise a team when they're working with people rather than someone who sucks the life out of the team. The other one is enjoy. I think enjoy is critically important. You spend most of your life at work. If you don't like it, go do something else. Life's too short. Then the other two for me are excellence, and that's about giving it your best shot every single time. And the last one is around edge. What I expect from people who are hiring or people who work in our organisation. Do they have the ability to have the difficult conversations around performance and expectations, not only with myself, but their colleagues and the people that work for them? And they're the people that I think help take the organisation forward.
Graham, we've got a few questions that I think might have your name on it that have come in from our curious audience today. I just wanted to ask you a couple of them. What are some of the current or potential challenges that South32 is facing with the changes in niche manufacturing proposed by our PM, Scott Morrison?
Yeah, look, I mean, the reality is today, the majority of the commodities that we produce get exported. We are a company that's hugely in favour of global free trade because our products go all over the world. If you look at our customer base, it's heavily into Europe, Asia, Africa and India. So they're our major markets. So from our perspective, while there's a lot of things going on in Australia I think are important, I think the biggest concern for us in the short term is watching if the world moves more and more away from globalisation by putting in tariffs and trade barriers that stops free trade. So certainly that's the push that we have as an organisation. I think from an Australian sort of centric view, I think the opportunity for Australia is how does it continue to diversify not only in mining, but the other services it can provide around education, tourism. And I think that's the area I'd be encouraging government rather than actually trying to compete head on with some lower cost countries around manufacturing, to be honest.
Okay. Just talking about some of those other sectors that might feed into mining, in this case, they're coming into mining. Cybersecurity graduates, another question from our audience. What are the opportunities for cybersecurity graduates and postgraduates in the mining field?
Look, absolutely. I mean, that's something we're continuing to see an increase, if you like, in threat to the organisation. It's one of our top 10 strategic risks. And particularly during COVID-19, we've actually seen that threat continue to ramp up. So one of the things we continue to do is bolster the strength of our cybersecurity team. Originally, when we started the journey as South32, we outsourced a lot of that and relied on external expertise. We've made the decision that such a strategic part of the business that we've brought that inside. So we're continuing to look to bring in the new skills necessary. I think as a whole industry and probably the global economy, I think it's a real growth part for people looking for jobs. And you just can look at recent press around BlueScope, Hydro, who've all been subject of cyber attacks and how much it can really put the business at risk.
This one from Janity, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, wants to know from you, Graham, how working in different locations has helped you to learn about leadership and to navigate and basically do the excellent things at work that you do.
Look, I think that the single biggest experience I've had out of my journey is, really the understanding that mining, if it is done sustainably, is good for the world. It helps lift people out of poverty. It makes a real difference in people's lives. We talked a lot about at the start about my first big career break was at the Arcady Diamond Mine for BHP. And that was, at the time, a hugely profitable business for BHP. But I think what I really learned from that is seeing a mine that was a greenfield mine, so it was a fresh new build, that actually managed to overcome many of the issues that existed about mining in the north in terms of the First Nations population who had low levels of education, substance abuse, domestic violence. watching over 10 to 20 years of the development of that mine, watching the real difference it made on people's lives in terms of wealth levels, education levels, and actually seeing the next generation of kids come back from university and give back to the community. To me, that really drove home, if you like, what mining can do globally around the world. And the broader context is, I think what it does remind you is wherever you go and operate, it's critically important that A, you understand the local context, and B, that you make your workforce represent the background social demographic, so everyone has a chance to benefit from you being there, because the reality is you're mining other people's resources. If they're not getting a share of that, they're not going to want you there.
Graham, I know you're also a big champion for diversity and equality in the workforce. How do you think we're going? How far have we come with achieving gender equality and also overcoming other diversity challenges?
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Tim, when you talk about other diversity challenges. I mean, clearly in Australia, there's a challenge around gender. I sit on as the national body for male champions of change. I'm actually the chairman for the CEO of Gender Equity in Western Australia. And to me, that's simply the case that in my industry today, you know, we probably have on average about 12% of the workforce is female. We have about 16% in South32, of which about 50% of my direct reports are female. But the reality is the industry is not great at this, and today we are not accessing over 50% of the talent pool. So the business case simply stacks up that you need to actually unlock that talent and have access to it. And it's not about preferential hiring. For me, it's about creating a level playing field that makes it equal for everyone to actually compete. And that will be driven around things like a more flexible workplace, a more, if you like, open policy around family caring. They're all the things that you need to put in place. But it's not just about gender. For example, in other places where we operate, such as South Africa, it's very much about a country that 22 years ago came out of, if you like, in that place, it's about making sure that we continue to create jobs for historically disadvantaged South Africans at all levels. And that's around procurement, it's around management, it's around supervision. So we sort of drive that agenda there. It goes back to the comment I made earlier, wherever South32 operates, we need to make sure that our workforce represents the background demographic of where we operate. So whether that's race, religion, sexual preference, gender, that's what it's going to be about.
And Graham, I'm not sure if this question was specifically on this topic, but I'll ask it anyway because it kind of fits into the conversation where we're at the moment. This anonymous person in our audience wanted to ask how to start a career as a young female chemical engineer graduate.
Yeah, look, I mean, the way I think about it, whether you're a female or male, it doesn't make a difference. You put your best foot forward. You know, again, when we go out there and recruit, we have a strong drive to make sure that we hire the best people, but we try and make sure the people we're hiring represent the background demographic. So I certainly don't think a female or a male is disadvantaged or advantaged one over the other. So my advice would be the same one I'd give a male candidate, is that you actually get good marks at university, you work on your communication skills and actually show the employer that you're a well-rounded person that can come into the team from day one and start contributing. And contributing is just not around technical capability, it's around the EQ things about how you connect, how you communicate and how you learn quickly.
This is also in the diversity realm here, Graham, but this time we're talking about age. What career prospects are there for someone, say, 56 years of age or over?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that is becoming globally more challenging for people. There tends to be a preference for younger people who are potentially, if you like, more, if you like, able to use some of the newer technology that's coming through. But in saying that, there's absolutely, and don't mean it in a negative way, but you know, we have a conversation internally about where we still need plenty of grey-haired people in our organisation who have the experience. They've been there, done that before. They understand some of the challenges, because certainly in our industry there is a lot of repeat that occurs. So how do you actually use that experience, if you like, to help develop younger people, but also allow you to make better business decisions? So I don't think we discriminate based on age, but recognise there potentially is different skill sets that come through in that space.
Graham, I'll leave you alone for now, but thank you very much for sharing your journey, your advice and your forecast with us. I'm sure we might still have a couple of questions a little bit later on that are best addressed by you, so please stay with us. But I know that many of the students listening and watching this afternoon would like to get some practical tips. So to do that, we've enlisted another expert at South32. So I'd now like to introduce South32 Group Manager of Culture and Capability, Lincoln Cox. Lincoln has held a number of organisational development roles with a number of the big mining players, Chevron, Rio Tinto among them, and now, of course, at South32. So good afternoon to you, Lincoln, and thanks so much for being with us.
Afternoon, Tim, and afternoon, everybody who's dialed into the session. Appreciate it.
Can I just ask you firstly, how does the grad program at South32 work? How do you advertise for and then recruit your grads into that program? Yeah,
sure. No, good question. So our program, we commence advertising through Seek, LinkedIn Learning, career fairs, job boards and whatnot. That would normally commence around about the March period. And then we would go through a selection and appointment process around about that April to July period effectively, with graduates then commencing in February of the following year. In terms of the actual process that people would go through, it's not dissimilar to seen if you've been through this process. For those online, it's something called an assessment centre. So it's a range of tools and processes as part of one collective event. So that would involve interviews, presentations, group activities and psychometric assessments as well, to get some of the insights around how people perform and some of their opportunities for future capability.
And what are the really key attributes that you're looking for in a graduate, Lincoln, to usher into your grad program?
Yeah, I guess this is something that I've spoken a lot about, not only with graduates, but with other individuals. It's really important to note that technical proficiency is something that will hold you very much in good stead for those early career roles. And then as you move up into different levels within the business, it's a blend of that technical and professional competence that we start to see really shine through. So from a graduate perspective, absolutely, it's around sort of grades and that technical proficiency. But from a people skill, it's really around how do I work with others to achieve my results. And so interpersonal skills, communication skills, decision making, collaboration are some of the key attributes that we'll be looking for in how people present.
And on that, Lincoln, what advice would you give to recent graduates who are seeking roles and opportunities?
Yeah, I think you can see a slide here that we've got up on the screen. And this advice wouldn't be purely just to graduates, it would be across those seeking positions. I guess one of the first things will be around a bit of research in finding out which companies you're looking to work for and who might have the most attractive value proposition for you personally. Secondly, we'd also really encourage people to connect early. One of the things to understand from recruitment practices standpoint is that we have something called a talent pipeline, and this isn't unique to South32. So we start thinking potential employees way back as part of community and student programs. We then move into scholarship and bursary activities, then into vacation work, and then finally into the graduate program itself. And to give you some insight, 80% of our graduates who started in Australia this year were vacation students in the previous year. So your ability to connect with and network with a company early is really important. Leveraging your own personal networks as well. Friends, colleagues, people who are out there in the industry can be very helpful for you to understand and help you to position what organisation you might wish to work for. The fourth one there around customisation. This is something that we do quite a bit. You don't have a lot of opportunity there to sort of present yourself and stand out from I guess the swathe of individuals who've applied for these positions. So your ability to make sure that you really follow through on the process and customise your application to making sure that it's clear what value proposition you offer to an organisation is critical. And then finally, when it comes to the assessment centres I just spoke about, those are skills and the skills that can be learned. So from what I understand, you have a careers and an employment team out there at ECU, and I really encourage you to leverage the services and offerings that they provide. but practice the interviews, practice those tough questions and the presentation skills. Those will likely be the things that you'll be rated on.
A really practical question that's come through from our audience, Lincoln, wants to know, do you use special software to scan through resumes and cover letters? And what tips would you give to make a resume and cover letter stand out?
It's a good question. I know that there is software available we readily use. So there are sort of keyword search terms that pop up. I guess we have an elimination process around eligibility to perform in the role in the first instance. For example, would be one of the primary filtering mechanisms. But we do take the time to read through and review those applications and understand what people are talking about and how they best presented themselves. There is software available in the market, but it's not something that we use currently.
Another one from our audience, what are the most important soft skills that employers look for in recent graduates?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of what I was speaking about just previously. Communication is primarily one that we'd be looking for there. You're talking about crews of 10, 20 people, organizations or operations that might have 1,000 to 2,000 odd people within them. So your ability to work with other people to achieve results is critical. So communication would be one. And I guess your ability in terms of decision-making practices, how you analyze information, taking differing viewpoints and conflicting viewpoints, and then arrive at a decision point and then engage and connect people with that in terms of execution. Those are some of the practical skills that we'd be really looking for in our people.
You mentioned communication skills. Some of those people with communication skills, as a real strong point, find themselves in other disciplines at university. Communications courses, for instance, but also marketing. Justin wants to know, what are the opportunities for marketing graduates in the mining industry, and what advice would you give to recent marketing grads in this challenging landscape? Is there a place for them as well in mining?
Yeah, I guess my overarching comment would be there's a place for most in mining, if not all. So to give you a classic example of that, my manager now, the Chief People and Legal Officer, so the head of HR, is a lawyer by trade. When it comes to engineers, I've seen engineering qualified individuals work in sustainability and health and safety roles, environmental management roles, as well as operations. So I guess the key call out for me is that there are a raft of skill sets that we need across our value chain. We currently have doctors and physicians in our organisation as well. So from a marketing perspective, absolutely, those are skill sets that we would see as required going forward. When you look at our business model, is that something that we have dozens of individuals coming in as in our entry programs on an annual basis? No, we tend to have our engineering fields, but absolutely, we are constantly looking at what is the skill mix that we need for now and into the future, and then how can we have that fed through in our talent pipeline, such as our graduate and vacation school programs.
Lincoln, how important are those first impressions when you're first coming into contact with a would-be employee? That first impression, how important is that?
Twofold. It's very important, and I think it's one of those things to note that as part of those assessment centres, for instance, I guess you're always on, and people are always looking for cues and insights that they can draw from that overall process. I guess the second part of that would be we certainly recognise that for many this is one of, if not their first instance as part of this process. So we absolutely expect a degree of nervousness as part of that, but we would certainly be looking for people to put their best foot forward, which is why I really encourage that practice and preparation in the lead up to the event.
And perhaps this might be somewhat related. Another question from our audience: how do you stand out when applying for jobs as a fresher and have no experience in the industry?
Yeah, that's not that uncommon. Like I said, we do tend to source from our vacation programs, but again, those are competitive programs in and of themselves. So we don't anticipate that everyone comes to us with a raft of experiences. These are investments as part of our talent pipeline for the long term. We really see these individuals as being technical experts of today rather, and our future leaders of tomorrow. So I wouldn't necessarily be overly concerned with it. I'd certainly encourage people to source some form of experience if they can, as they're making their way through their degree and their qualification. But absolutely, this is a longer term investment, and that mix of technical as well as professional proficiency is really what we're after here.
And for engineering students, this is another question from our audience. So for engineering students, both local and international, that are in their first and second year, what realistic part-time jobs are strategic to be appealing to employers?
So you can repeat the last bit there. Sorry, Tim.
I think the crux of what they're asking is, you know, when you're going through uni, perhaps you're in first or second year, and you're also having to do a part-time job as well as you go through university. What are the sorts of part-time jobs you can do through university that are ultimately appealing to you, a potential employer?
Yeah, I would suggest it's anything itself to some of those professional skills that I mentioned before around communication, work, and then decision-making practices. So those can be generated and gleaned from a whole of industries. I certainly sort of know myself reflecting on my undergraduate time. I worked in a bar and in the hotel industry, but through my working in that space, I moved into supervisory positions, and that was as part of my graduate applications and some of the interviews that I undertook. I was able to talk about the experiences and the analogies that I could take from those examples as to how I typically work with others. So I wouldn't necessarily take a really linear view in this as to what are the skill sets that must be directly translated to mining. Looking at this, how can I gain some of those professional competencies, and how can I gain some experience exposure so that I have the ability to talk to that?
Graham, I might throw that question to you as well, actually. I've just learned that Lincoln spent some time pulling pints in a bar back in the day. What about you when you were getting around town in your fine mullet? What sort of part-time jobs did you do?
Yeah, look, Tim did a variety of work, actually. Used to work on a building site, sinking septic tanks.
Yeah.
That was part of the job, and also worked at the department store doing things like night shift, and then worked behind a bar as well.
Yep.
So a variety of different jobs along the way just to provide money to actually get through university. And in some ways, those jobs, while they're critical at the time to provide you with cash, they're also great experiences as well.
Yeah. And for an entry-level position, I mean, do you really look at those part-time jobs and look for value in those and skills that people might have acquired during those times?
Yeah, I mean, I made the comment earlier, and Lincoln made a comment around technical skills, but I do think there's an element of we can attract good technical skills. It's how you find someone who can combine that with the ability to communicate and connect with people, which I mean, to my mind, really creates a standout candidate because they can do both. And, you know, you want to bring people into the organisation very quickly. You have the ability to learn and influence people. And to do that, you've got to be able to communicate.
Yeah. Look, I think this might be maybe one for you, Graham, as well. Can you tell us about the opportunities for, I've just lost it there for a second, best opportunities for an electrical and communication engineer in the mining industry, in networking, cybersecurity and software? Yeah,
look, I think in all those areas you spoke of opportunity, that there's no doubt the more and more that mining moves down that path of automation using technology to drive productivity, there's more and more opportunities in that space around electrical and technical side. And we see that to the operation like Worsley, which has been running for many decades. We continue to install new ways of automation and technology to make the business more efficient. And as we start thinking about new opportunities, we're in the process of building a new lead, silver and zinc mine in Arizona called Taylor at Hermosa. You know, that's the kind of operation where we're looking to use Tesla electric vehicles, electric underground vehicles, and also completely renewable power. That all requires people with those kind of skills around connectivity, you know, electrical connections, communication connections, and I think that trend will continue. So I think it's a hugely valuable skill.
Lincoln, perhaps one final one for you. We do have a proud history here at ECU of welcoming international students. We've got a couple of questions on behalf of international students. Firstly, is it possible for them to join South32's graduate program or entry-level positions? And how would you see the opportunities specifically for international students heading into the job market here in Perth in the mining sector?
Yeah, certainly we do. We have a focus predominantly on domestic students in the organisation, and from a working rights and whatnot perspective, those would be some of the criterion to consider in terms of opportunities within the organisation. Having said that, I guess we're always looking for any opportunity to bring in a diverse skill set that sets us up for today and going forward into the future. So I would encourage all students to keep abreast of our external website, South32, to find out about any career opportunities, events, things, and also connect with us on LinkedIn as an example. That would be a great way to learn about what opportunities there are coming up in the field.
Thank you for that. Look, we are nearing the end of our Extraordinary Minds in Extraordinary Times webinar for today. A big thank you to all of our viewers for your questions, especially. If we didn't get time to address them today, we will be collating our most asked questions and then posting them up on our Alumni Careers webpage. But I'd like to say a massive thanks to both Graham Kerr and Lincoln Cox for being so generous with their time and for their wisdom today. So thank you very much to you both, Graham and Lincoln.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Appreciate it, and good luck, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Thank you both. If you'd like some more information about South32's graduate and vocation programs, please head to the link that should be up there on your screen now. And a big thank you to all of you who've joined us today. We hope you've got something out of it and enjoyed it and can take some valuable tips with you as you prepare for the next stage of your careers. And if you missed any part of today's webinar, we will be reposting it on our ECU alumni homepage, so keep an eye out for that. The alumni team here at ECU is happy to help you with any of your inquiries, so please don't hesitate to reach out to them. Their details are on the screen now, and I mentioned earlier to make sure that your details are with them and up to date, so if they don't know how to get in touch with you, they don't know how to get that information to you. So please make sure that they have your most up-to-date contact details. And please join us next week for our second in our Extraordinary Minds series. We'll be hosting yet another champion of industry next week with global shipping giant Austal. Austal's CEO David Singleton and their HR leader Lisa Breen will be joining us to share more engineering and business insights with you. So if you'd like to register for that now, there is a QR code on the bottom of your screen, and you can do that right away. So until then, hopefully we'll catch you then. I'm Tim McMillan. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye for now.